I'm a twin. I had a brother. His name was Pietro.
He was killed by Ultron, wasn't he?
What did you say?
How's it going, everybody? Welcome again to my channel, Film Flicks and Comics, where we talk all things movies, TV and comics, and of course Marvel and everything related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And today we're continuing our weekly recap of Marvel's WandaVision. Episode 3 is here. Let's get to it. After going through the 50s and 60s in the first episodes, Episode 3 is now set in the 70s, still modeled around the famous shows of that era, namely Brady Bunch among others. Episode 3 opens up with a visit from Dr. Nielsen, confirming the pregnancy of Wanda. Although it's weird that he wasn't able to detect twins, as we will find out later, it gives us an idea of how Wanda controls and alters his pocket reality by willing twins after he and Vision had the discussion on the baby's name. After the checkup and some small talk, Vision walks the doctor out. The doctor mentions about his intended plan to vacation in Bermuda, which we all know is known as the Bermuda Triangle or the Devil's Triangle, a definite reference to Mephisto, the rumored villain in the series. Vision notices that Herb is cutting into the center block wall that divides their yards, as though it's normal. Of course, by now we all know that the world is not as it seems. It's apparent now that Herb is not entirely from this world, and his act of cutting through the wall and making it look normal seemed like Herb is trying to cut into the walls of the reality created by Wanda. Vision goes back in the house wanting to tell Wanda about Herb when he suddenly notices that Wanda's tummy have grown significantly bigger compared to 5 minutes ago. As the two of them get to work in the nursery, Wanda begins to feel the flutter movement in her belly and accidentally transformed the toy butterflies to real butterflies. She said she was surprised about the butterfly transformation, which may be a clue to her not being completely in control of her powers in that realm. They start talking about baby names, with Wanda leaning toward Tommy and Vision wanting Billy. Although the WandaVision series is not a page by page adaptation of the House of M, they have many shared elements, and one of which is Wanda's twin boys Billy and Tommy, who in the comic books go on to become heroes themselves. We'll get back to this later. As Vision practices how to be a father by putting on diapers to a doll, Wanda experiences a contraction and causes the power to go out and the pipes to break. Wanda begins to worry that the neighbors might start to suspect that it was them who's causing all the ruckus, and it might lead to the whole of Westwood discovering their secret. It's at this point that Vision again begins to break from the comical sitcom character. He suddenly becomes the Vision that we know. With a puzzled expression, he starts bringing up weird things he's been noticing, from Mr. and Mrs. Hart at dinner, and with Herb outside. He tells Wanda that there's something wrong. With a very worried look on her face, the scene resets. Wanda again rewinds the show to avoid having Vision learn too much, just like what she did in episode 2 when they heard a strange noise outside and went out to find the hazmat bee guy coming out of the manhole. The scene had a different outcome now with Vision channeling his weird feelings to anxiety about having to experience something new, like fatherhood. However, as we go through more of episode 3, we'll see that Vision's suspicions doesn't end, rather it continues and becomes more intense. Going back to the scene, the couple's conversation were interrupted by Wanda's contractions, her water breaking and the sprinkler system going off inside their home. The scene cuts there, and we're once again into a familiar commercial break. The commercial starts with absolute chaos breaking out in the woman's kitchen. And just like in the commercials in episodes 1 and 2, it's the same woman. She's absolutely overwhelmed by her kids knocking off a cereal bowl, her dog pissing on the kitchen island, her overcooking a roast, and the blender exploding. Do you need a break? A voiceover announces, and after agreeing, she finds herself in a fancy bubble bath while a servant fans her. Out comes a soap box which reads, Hydra Soap, with the tagline, Find the Goddess Within. Okay, so obviously the name Hydra Soap and the octopus data design of the packaging are direct references to Hydra, the evil organization originally founded by the Red Skull. What's more intriguing though is the concept of Hydra Soap. Lets you escape to a world of your own. This could probably mean that Hydra is somehow responsible for keeping Wanda in the pocket reality. Or it could just be another reference to how Wanda and her brother Pietro got their powers through Hydra experimentation. Whatever the case may be, this commercial break remains consistent with the belief that the subjects of the commercials are representations of different periods in Wanda's life. After the commercial break, Wanda dries off herself and Vision the breeze, and Vision runs off to get the doctor. She hears the doorbell ring, so she uses her powers to get a coat to hide her pregnancy. It's Geraldine on the door, borrowing a bucket because the pipes burst in the ceiling of her home. She tries to look for the bucket in the kitchen, but the constant contractions disrupts her powers, changing her coat several times in the process. As Geraldine was about to leave, she suddenly wants to tell Wanda about her job, and as much as Wanda wants her to leave, she had to distract her from seeing the stork that suddenly appeared, which of course was caused by her powers fluctuating because of the contractions. Geraldine heads to the spare room looking for extra supplies for work. She gets surprised when she found the crib instead. The contractions get more intense that Wanda had to reveal what she can't hide anymore. As Wanda goes into labor, everything in the house goes haywire. Surprisingly, Geraldine barely notices what's happening in the house and instead tells Wanda to start pushing. Just as a baby boy was delivered, Vision arrives with the doctor. Wanda presents the baby boy to Vision, and Vision concedes to Wanda calling the baby Tommy. After sharing a brief, sweet moment, Wanda screams in pain again just before she starts pushing again. The second baby arrives, and before you know it, Vision and Wanda are parents of twin boys Tommy and Billy. And as mentioned earlier, this is quite significant as the twins had great importance in the comic storyline of House of M. In the comic books, it was revealed that Wanda borrowed Mephisto's life essence to create her children, but Mephisto eventually took the children's soul back. This eventually led to Agatha Harkness wiping Wanda's memories of ever having children in the first place. They were later on resurrected as Wiccan and Speed as part of the Young Avengers. As Vision shows the Doctor outside, he wishes him that he could still make his trip. The Doctor decides not to leave and he says, "Small towns, hard to escape," seemingly referring to being trapped in the weird pocket reality. And with Vision trying to question the statement, he overhears Herb and Agnes gossiping about him. As Vision small talks the pair about the power outage, Agnes proudly says that Ralph, her husband, is better in the dark, cementing our belief that Ralph is Mephisto, the devil himself. As Vision starts to walk away, Agnes calls the Vision, asking if Geraldine is in the house with Wanda. Vision confirms that she's in the house and Agnes tries to turn him against her by saying she's new in town and that she doesn't have a family or a home. Vision of course asks what that means and Herb repeatedly says, "She came here because we're all," and before he could answer, Agnes interrupts him, as if to warn him not to say anything further. Both Agnes and Herb redirects the conversation to something funny. But this time, we hear in our audience laughing. Things are getting serious and Vision again becomes suspicious, just like when she mentioned to Wanda early on that something was wrong. While this was going on outside, Wanda and Geraldine were in the nursery tending to the twins. As Geraldine mentions the twins, Wanda confides that she's also a twin and sadly mentions her brother Pietro as she starts singing a lullaby. Pietro, or Quicksilver, the twin brother of Wanda, has been referenced a lot in this episode by Vision's use of super speed. From the time he caught a papaya from falling down, to practicing a diaper change, to using super speed to bring the doctor to Wanda when she was giving birth. Obviously, no more subtle reference here, as Geraldine directly mentions the past event in the MCU, more specifically in Avengers Age of Ultron, when Pietro died when he sacrificed himself in saving Hawkeye and a Sokovian kid. Getting no response and visibly mad about Geraldine's question on the killer robot who ended her brother's life, Wanda asks Geraldine again, and she tries to redirect the conversation by giving a funny line. But just like with Agnes and Herb, no one was laughing, and tension was building with Wanda as she asked her who she is and what the symbol on her necklace is, seemingly remembering that it's the same symbol she saw in the downed helicopter in the beekeeper's suit in the previous episode. As Vision enters the home revealing his true face, she asks where Geraldine is. As Wanda says she had to hurry home, we see the 4:9 screen ratio expand to the more modern 16:9 ratio, seemingly telling us we're back to present time. Then we see a sign of Westview, and Geraldine bursts through the pixelated TV sky, glowing in red as she lands, signaling to us that she was thrown out by Wanda from her reality to a more present time. As she rose to break her fall on the ground, she gets swarmed by military vehicles and personnel, which is safe to assume is S.W.O.R.D. And in the background, we see Westview for the first time, though in place of physical houses and buildings, all that's there is an invisible force field with towering pylons sending electric currents through it. What an episode! Finally, the break from this warped reality that we've all been waiting for. After beginning with a funny yet mysterious tone, the world of WandaVision quickly came into focus with this episode. Episode 1 and 2 introduced us to the black and white television reality that Wanda and Vision made their home, but it did so with little clue as what the bigger picture is. Previous to this episode, we only had a few glimpses of what was really going on. In episode 1, we had this one odd moment at the dinner table where Wanda asks Vision to help the choking Mr. Hart. And later on in the same episode, as we watch the episode's credit sequence begin to roll, we begin to realize that it's actually fake credits for what seems apparently to be a TV show within a TV show. More importantly, we saw someone with a notebook bearing the S.W.O.R.D organization symbol watching along with us. In episode 2, we saw the outside world start to infiltrate the seeming peaceful life in Westview, disrupting the 60s style sitcom while introducing color in the process. And this week, Westview finally enters the MCU. Until this episode, except for some glimpses from Vision, it seemed as if all the characters in Westview were completely unaware that they're living in a made-up pocket reality. Now we know for sure that Agnes and Herb knows about the existence of this made-up reality, as they are aware that Geraldine is an imposter. Who else is in the know? It's a mystery we hope we can reveal soon. But as far as Vision is concerned, we know that he's slowly piecing together the puzzle that is Westview. And although Vision is ultimately a supporting character, taking reference to the title show WandaVision, which is quite literally Wanda's television or Wanda's vision, he may be the only one able to end Wanda's destructive fantasy. Surprisingly, the first two episodes had strayed from the traditional superhero formula that Marvel built their cinematic universe on. I mean, whoever thought we'd be watching a sitcom after Infinity War and Endgame? Yet, here we are. And we're finally rewarded by episode 3 of the feeling of familiarity of our beloved MCU. And the glimpse of how the sitcom charm is fading makes us realize that the MCU as we know it is back. Thank you guys for watching my video. We're all looking forward to episode 4. If you liked the video, please smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you again. Until the next video.